obsessing over a 24-year-old's $50,000 scholarship.
I'm interested
it would
in
seem
truth,
beneath
Vivek.
you.
It's on your cap that you wear. I'm interested in truth.
And Mehdi,
like
that's why I released 20. Mehdi, that is why I released 20 years of tax records. Tell your friends in the Biden administration to do the same thing.
Hey guys, we are continuing to surge in the race, and that means the knives are continuing to come out. So we're going to keep debunking the myths as they come up, because I think it's important to be transparent and address criticisms. That's part of what it means. If you can't handle the heat, you stay out of the kitchen. And I'm running for president of the United States, so we're going to address any of these criticisms as they come out.
All right, folks. Well, as I'm sure you're familiar with by now, there's been quite a bit of scrutiny around Vivek Ramaswamy over these past few weeks. And honestly, I don't even know if scrutiny is the right word, because to a degree, I think it is healthy cross-examination. Obviously, now that the guy is no longer at 1% in the polls, he's certainly not a joke candidate by any means anymore. I do think it is necessary for all Republican voters out there, whether you're considering voting for him or not, to truly look into the guy, to delve into his past, to analyze his background, listen to the things he says now, and try to discern for yourself whether or not you genuinely believe he is the guy that he claims to be. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's actually something conservatives need to do more often, considering the fact that, hey, we've been sold a great number of charlatans over the past few decades, have we not? There's been a lot of people who came along in a moment, seemed like the next rising conservative star, and then panned out to be an absolute train wreck. I'm not saying that's Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm just saying that I think the attitude of conservative skepticism is certainly healthy and necessary. You know, Chris Christie comes to mind as one example. People seem to forget in 2012, even 2016, a lot of people saw him as this inspirational rising star in the party. And of course, look where he is now. I'm not saying that's Vivek. I'm just saying, to a degree, I do think it is healthy for people to ask questions. A lot of people have been asking questions over the past few weeks, some of them good faith, some of them bad faith. But one of the big things I think it's going to be hard for Vivek to get over, especially with us as conservatives, is the background in Big Pharma. That is something certainly to ask questions about. Now, I don't think it's entirely disqualifying for a reason I'll bring up in a second, but I do think that it is something that he's going to have to get over. As you're familiar with, he used to be a Big Pharma CEO, very big in that field, and it certainly raises some eyebrows. And here's Vivek Ramaswamy, to his credit, responding to some of those claims, and it's good that he's at least addressing them here. Let's take a listen, folks. This is him responding to the recent hate around him.
Hey everybody, we're surging. The knives are coming out again. A lot of myths. We'll debunk them one at a time, tell the truth at every step. So actually, to make this easier, you can go to vivek2024.com/fake news. But I'll address a couple of them that have been popular in the last couple of days. One is that I somehow made a lot of money off of some failed drug for Alzheimer's disease. Wrong. The fact of the matter is I did develop a drug for Alzheimer's. And like 99.7% of drugs that have ever been tested for Alzheimer's disease, it did fail. Nearly every drug ever tested for Alzheimer's has failed. In fact, most drugs for most pharmaceutical companies fail for a small number of successes. Now, in my case, did I make money off of that? No. In fact, I could have. The subsidiary of my firm, Roivant, that developed it, called Axovant, Roivant could have sold shares in it. I could have sold shares in it.
Side note, but totally unrelated, but I don't really think there is a cure for Alzheimer's. How do you invent a drug to restore someone's brain as it's declining? I think it really comes down to you need to stay active. You need to, okay, totally unrelated, whatever. Let's just listen to the video.
Some people would call that honorable. To the contrary, how I made my money was by developing 5 drugs that are FDA approved today. One of them is an approved drug for prostate cancer, another for endometriosis and uterine fibroids, another for psoriasis, another for overactive bladder, another for kids, 20 of whom are born every year with a genetic condition. 100% of them die by the age of 3 if they're untreated. A majority of those kids have a chance to live lives of normal duration if they are treated. I'm proud of those accomplishments. That's exactly how I achieved success and, yes, achieved wealth through free market capitalism, which we shouldn't apologize for. Hardship is something that happens to you. Victimhood is a choice. And I choose to be victorious. That's what I tell young people across this country as well. We should embrace capitalism rather than apologizing for it. Something that professional politicians would perhaps do well to learn for themselves. One of the other criticisms we've heard is somehow that I'm anti-Israel.
Okay, before we get into that whole section and debacle, let's pause here and talk about the big pharma background. Now, I will say, I think every conservative hears that, and naturally, we have to be a little bit skeptical. I am a little bit skeptical. I've said this before. This has been the take I've had for a while, which is I don't neither really trust fully nor distrust fully Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm still kind of on the fence in terms of, well, let's just wait and see how it all pans out and kind of let the guy build up his credibility more before we really make a definitive decision on that. I think that's fair. That's the take I still maintain. Now, in terms of the big pharma background itself, obviously that's a red flag for all of the reasons people would normally expect. At the same time, there's an angle to which, fairness to him, there's an angle to which that actually is not discrediting and can actually help him as a leader in this sense. In the same way that Donald Trump, as you know, comes from the elites, the very class of elites that we don't really like as conservatives and accuse of destroying this country. You know, Donald Trump used to be buddy-buddy with the Clintons, all of that. But very often you find that the great leaders who really come along and make change for the people usually don't come from the pure grassroots. Usually it's someone from inside the system, like Donald Trump, who sees how broken the system is, understands it like the back of his hand because he comes from it, and then kind of uses that power and that influence to ultimately start a counter-revolution to take down, peacefully speaking, the current class of elites. So I think there is an angle to which, I'm not saying I believe Vivek is this or not this. I'm just saying there's an angle to which him coming from big pharma can actually help because he understands that industry. He understands the corruption and the problems within it. Therefore, he can truly be the guy to stand up and fight it the best in the same way Donald Trump did. In the same way, a lot of the revolutionary leaders throughout history, like the founding fathers, most of them, as much as history paints them this way, most of them were not normal farmers. They were wealthy aristocrats, plantation owners, stuff like that. So I do think there's an angle there. I certainly do. At the same time, have I been sold yet that I really believe I can fully trust them like that? No. But at the same time, I think I could probably maybe in the long run be convinced. It's just something to consider. It's something to consider. Anyways, with that said, let me know what you guys think about that too, by the way, because I definitely think there's going to be some dissension there. Some people will say, nope, big pharma, absolutely can't trust. I share the skepticism. I'm just saying there's an angle to which it could actually be very helpful. Heck, the second Trump White House, maybe we send him in to reform big pharma because he knows it the best. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. All right, let's get in now to the not controversial at all Israel stuff. Let's take a listen.
That's a joke. By the end of my first term, our relationship with Israel is going to be stronger than it ever has been because I will treat it as a true friendship, not a client relationship, not a transactional relationship. What does that mean? I'm going to lead diplomatically to Abraham Accords 2.0, build on the pact that the Trump administration negotiated, but take it to the next level. Add Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Indonesia to the list. Work with Israel to make sure that Iran never, ever acquires nuclear capabilities. That's in the U.S. interest. That's why I stand for it. I also want to have Bibi over to the White House, have a strong relationship with him in a way that it seems Biden can't quite do. I also want to learn from Israel. This is what good friends do with each other. I've been to Israel many times. Actually, I was talking about my business background. One of my first business partners and founding investors in Reuven was an Israeli firm. I've been there countless times. And the truth of the matter is, I want Israel's tough border policies, tough on crime policies, strong national identity, missile defense system. I want to learn from those policies because I would love to have them here in the United States. That's how.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with his take on Israel. I think it's 100% correct, and I definitely agree with it, which is fundamentally that he does not want to continue the current relationship of sending so much foreign aid to Israel, which, you know, if we're going to be America first, fiscally conservative, hey, foreign aid should be reduced overall across the board, right? And his take on it is, well, the current aid we send to Israel is mainly military funding. We're basically giving them arms so that way they can fight against the other forces of the Middle East. Why do that? shouldn't the ultimate goal, like Donald Trump tried to do with the Abraham Accords, and they were certainly a big step towards peace in the Middle East, why should we want that relationship to go on forever? Shouldn't we eventually, in the end, want a relatively stable and peaceful Middle East where we don't have to, quote unquote, according to them, right? We don't have to keep sending so much money to Israel because the Middle East is stable and kind of at peace. Shouldn't we want peace? So that's number one. I think he's completely correct about that. Then number two, the take that, well, if Israel has an Iron Dome, shouldn't we adopt that for our own missile defense system? Look at how tough they are on their border. Shouldn't we do that? I think Israel actually built a border wall around 2006 or something like that. Shouldn't America do the same thing? Also, again, a completely valid point. And this part, I guess, is not so much meant for me. I don't have any problem with his take on Israel. I completely agree, but
true friends do it, not just by checking a box and reading standard talking points from a binder.
True.
I'm not a professional politician who reads from that standard binder given to every Republican politician. No, I'm a patriot who speaks the truth. As the next president, I will stand for the interests of the United States of America, not any other country. But that is why I think that our strong relationship with Israel is so important. So I'm sure those myths will keep coming. We'll keep debunking them, tell the truth at every step. You can't handle the heat, stay out of the kitchen, they say. Well, I'm running for U.S. president, so I'm going to be able to handle the heat. But we're going to keep doing it honestly at every step.
All right, so there's his response video. Obviously, y'all can let me know what you think about it. So, again, my overall take, people say, Vince, why do you keep sitting on the fence about him? Can you just endorse him already? Well, no, I'm not going to, because I plan to vote for Trump in this primary. The big reason I say I think it's fine to just have this skepticism and praise him where I agree, which is most of the time, and then kind of disagree where I disagree, is because truly, let's be realistic about what's going to happen. He's vying for the VP slot from Trump. If he doesn't get it, I'm sure he'll get some type of policy advisor position. I think chief of staff would be very good for him. And I think that's really, hopefully, in the end, going to be the proving ground in terms of, is he really the guy that we hope he is, or certain people hope he is, or we think maybe he will be? So that's my overall take on it. I don't plan to vote for him. I plan to vote for Trump. So this whole question of, is he a plant? Can we fully trust him? Well, I'm more than happy to bide my time on that, because Trump very likely is going to be the nominee. He will very likely have some type of position in the Trump White House if Trump does win the election. So we can wait until 2028 to really reach the verdict on this. I don't think there's anything wrong with time. Now, at the same time, part of the reason why I do so many reaction videos to Vivek and the things he says is because I think a lot of the ideas, whether or not you truly believe he's sincere or that's who he is, I think a lot of the ideas he's pushing into the Overton window are overall good. Whether it's raising questions about, say, what does it mean to be an American, to be a part of quote unquote American democracy, or more properly the American Republic, or stuff like fighting the deep state or foreign aid, or all of this stuff. I think he's a very good rhetorical guy, and I think it's good that he's inserting these certain ideas into the conservative discussion, if you will. So I think that's good. Now, on the question again of his past, I mean, here's what I will say. There are obviously red flags in his past. You cannot deny that. Whether it's some of the stuff he said in his past books, or the big pharma stuff, the George Soros scholarship, the Paul Soros, I think it was. I mean, you could make an argument about that. To some degree, it's not the biggest deal to me in the sense that, okay, you were applying for a random scholarship to get money. Okay, so you con George Soros of his own money? Oh, no. You know, so I don't know if that even law school 10 years ago is the biggest thing, but it's a concern to some people. I understand it. So what I would say is that, again, there's certainly red flags. There's certainly eyebrows to be raised. At the same time, I like to be fair about this. So put it into a little bit of perspective. Right? Whether, say, if you support Ron DeSantis, well, Ron DeSantis was basically a neocon in Congress 10 years ago. So if you're going to bring up what Vivek did 10 years ago, you got to bring up what Ron did. Even Donald Trump, you can make the argument maybe 20 years ago, hey, he was hanging out with the Clintons, all this stuff. Look at it now. So overall, I think it needs some perspective there. There are red flags in his past. There are plenty of things to be skeptical of. I don't think it's worse than any other political candidate. It's not like the guy was, the chair of the Democratic Party 10 years ago, and now suddenly he's a hardcore far-right conservative, right? It's not quite that. So that said, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, though, in the comment section down below. Do you, quote unquote, trust Vivek? Do you think this video settled some of your concerns, or you still have concerns? Let me know about all that in the comment section down below. And until next time, folks, be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new. Alpha moves only. God bless. Have a very good day, and peace.